Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this March 11th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. And you can find all of our content at EOA.network. Glad that you're here this morning. Here in just a little bit, we're going to have LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell will be with us. How are you, man?
Morning.
You doing all right?
Yeah, second Monday.
Yeah.
We're rolling.
Yeah.
That kid's still missing on the coast.
Is he?
Well, in Portland.
Yeah.
In Select. Yeah, 7 days. 7 days missing. 7 days.
Yeah.
It's a long. That sucks.
Well, I mean, the worst is that he probably got into the river and
I would imagine they
Yeah,
said that he was
yeah.
loved water, like that's why it's so important. Like, watch your kids. Like, even if you think that they can handle themselves, a 4-year-old.
well, yeah, but
Come on.
I saw a map of, I mean, their property, the river borders their property.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you still got to watch your kid.
no, I'm
mean,
just
like-
saying is like I mean that's like a parent's nightmare.
Yeah.
Every parent is like, you got a 2-year-old, or is that how old? 2 or 3, something like
Yeah,
that.
somewhere right around
Yeah, and I mean, that's awful.
there. Yeah, tragedy with kids is the worst.
Yeah.
I
Well,
could
and
never.
and the problem with drownings is that it could be 6 months before they find.
They might never
Yeah,
find it.
yeah.
They may never find
Yeah. In
it.
fact, there was that happened out here. A couple of years ago, there was a guy. I think he was running away from the police, and he got into the Grand Ronde River, and they never found him. So.
And the Grand Ronde River, if you think about it, isn't really that
No.
treacherous. I mean,
No, yeah.
I've been in it in a lot of different spots, and
Yeah.
I've never had like a lot of. It's not like the Rogue or
Right.
like
Right.
the Columbia. It's the
Right. It
Grand
only
Ronde.
has a lot of flow, just a few times a year.
Yeah, very short span.
Yeah. Yeah.
The problem with the Grand Ronde, though, is I'm sure a lot of people knows there's like a lot of weird like snags and a lot of trees underwater
Yeah.
and places where you could just get hung up. And that might be a problem.
Yep. Well, hey, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit in LeGrand. Every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., get together with the best Magic players in the community and play Magic the Gathering. 411 First Street, just for the fun of it. The EOU women's lacrosse team dropped a tough one at home on Saturday, senior day, 19-2 to Lewis and Clark. I have an interview in the can waiting to come out with seniors Jaden McCoy and Claire Beaver. It'll be out in the next week or so. EOU baseball lost all 4 this weekend on the road in Lewiston to LCSC. They were playing pretty decent. They won a home series against C of I, which I think that's the first time they've won a series against a CCC opponent. It might be the second since the reintroduction of baseball at EOU. They have Warner Pacific at home this weekend with double headers on Friday and Saturday, 12-2 and 11-2, or 12-3, excuse me, and 11-2 on Saturday. Congratulations to Nico Rodriguez, EOU heavyweight wrestler. He finished 5th in the country and became an All-American for the Mounties over the weekend at the NAIA Men's National Championships for wrestling. EOU softball continued to be dominant with a huge home opening weekend versus Corbin. The Mounties ruled. I mean, they just absolutely dominated this weekend. They ruled the Warriors in all 4 games. On Friday, they beat them 10-0, 10-1, and then on Saturday, they beat them 14-4 and 18-2. They scored 52 runs while only giving up 7 over the weekend, and this number 14 ranked Mountie team, I think they're a little better than 14 right now. They took 2 out of 4 against OIT, who's number 3 in the country, or number 2, right around there, 2 or 3, and our best beat their best twice. So, I mean, I'm thinking EOU is probably going to move up in the next poll. They also have home games again this weekend. They host the University of British Columbia with games at 2 and 4 on Friday and 11 and 1 on Saturday. The EOU women's basketball team got a surprising, very surprising to me, at-large bid into the national tournament. Everybody thought their season was done. I think including them. I sometimes it happens. Sometimes you just get, a lucky bid, and they travel to Williamsburg, Kentucky, to take on Cumberland's University on March 14th at 6:00 Eastern Time. Congratulations to LHS senior cheerleader Kendall DeYoung. Over the weekend, she was selected as an Oregon East-West Shrine All-Star football game cheerleader, and she's our only senior too. So that's awesome. They had a good season this year, that cheerleading team, and it's going to be fun. As of right now, we have one LeGrand football player and one LeGrand cheerleader in the game. And Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit, just for the fun of it.
Good stuff. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look outside. And it's super, super calm, beautiful out there.
Kind of overcast, though.
Yeah, it is, but it's still in the 50s, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Yeah, let's look at that weather graphic, Bennett.
I think it's just setting us up, BC.
50. Well, yeah, of course. It's gonna slap us here in a bit. Yeah. Yeah. So this Saturday, I mean, we could get rain and snow this weekend. It looks like.
Yeah, and that's when we don't want rain.
Yeah, but it's still going to be warm. I mean, it's still going to be 46, so it's not going to stick. At least down here in the valley. So.
Bud and Jimmy say good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Bud. Good morning, Jimmy. I got to see Bud this weekend at softball. He gave me a ride back here on Friday, actually, in between the games.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was out. I could hear him too. Like I don't hear. Usually, I'm pretty good at tuning out fans, but I could hear Bud. Bud's loud. Bud's like the Stu Spence of he was cheering for the girls, man. It was pretty awesome.
You know what's funny is that some people just have that gifted voice.
Yeah.
That whatever, there's a guy at the Pike Street Fish Market in Seattle, and he wasn't necessarily loud, but you could hear him a block away. I mean, just that was his whole gift, was like, yeah.
And Bud too, he's also savvy. Like, he knows the game. When somebody's cheering and they don't know the game, it's kind of annoying. You know what I mean? Like they're like cheering at the wrong time, or like saying the wrong things. But Bud's savvy when it comes to softball, and he knows like the things to say. It's cool.
Well, there you go, Bud.
Yeah. Shout out to Bud.
All righty. Well, hey, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
Even on good, Levi's. That's all.
All right, we're back. LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell. Hey, how are you, man?
Good. Good morning.
Yeah,
morning, guys.
good to see you. Welcome to the new set.
Yeah, thank you. It looks good.
Yeah.
I don't have to turn my head back and
I
forth
know.
quite as much. I like
Well,
it.
and I don't know, it feels a little bit more like a living room, just closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
We like it.
I'm due for my therapy session, so I was looking for a sofa this morning.
Okay, well, let's get you an ottoman to put your feet up on.
Yeah. I'll tell you all about it.
Well, yeah, so what's the new news in LeGrand Police Department?
Well, there's always, sometimes I'm not sure if it's news that it's not like clickbait stuff,
right?
Which honestly is good,
right.
There's always business going on, and in 31 years I haven't run out of things to do yet. So You know, we always have the same old things going on in terms of, you know, the patrol officers out on the street doing their job day in and day out, and that's not getting any easier.
Yeah.
It's budget season, you know, so administratively I'm busy putting together our requested budget for the coming fiscal year. We have drug take back coming up next month. You guys are, I think the community's well aware of that program, super successful.
Yeah.
I like to talk it up because I think we've made a lot of headway, you know, compared to 15 or 20 years ago, you know, in the safe disposal of,
Right.
of unwanted or unneeded expired drugs and medications. That's by the way, last Saturday of April.
Thank you.
We'll do a lot more advertising between now and then, but we've got some new dispatchers, we got some new police officers, so lots of training going on. We just recently had one of our newer police officers graduate and come back from the police academy, so he's in what we call FTEP, field training program. So yeah, lots of things going on.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I know that you're in the budget, and the budget is kind of like, this is what I want to do. You know, is there anything new in the budget that you can talk about that, or maybe I'll ask a different way. If you had more money and you could bolster a certain area, what would that be?
I'd hire another police officer so we could focus on drug enforcement.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I'd do. But I mean, that's a big ask. I mean, you know, here's the thing. There's a lot of people, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people in not just ours, but a lot of communities that they're not really civically engaged. So they just trust that things are happening. And to be fair, as long as you know, the people that, you know, have the responsibility to do it are doing a good job, people are satisfied with that. So there's a lot of people that don't get involved in, you know, the budget committee processes and things like that. But you know, we try. I embrace what the city's, you know, and City Manager Strope's philosophy has been, and I mean, we try to budget conservatively. You know, we want the city of LeGrand to be healthy now and into the future. But if you are aware or have been involved in discussions, anytime you add personnel is where all the money is, right? And so it's a big ask, because it's not, if we have to buy a new, you know, vehicle or whatever, that's conceivably a one-time expense.
Right.
But when you hire people, that's an expense this year and next year and into the future, unless you know, cut, and nobody likes to do that. That's very painful. So, you know, to do something like that takes a significant commitment, and it's just a matter of an exercise of priorities. You know, and the truth is that, you know, it depends on what level of government you're talking, but what I can tell you is attest to the city of LeGrand. You know, the managing the budget and what the budget committee does each spring, it's much like, you know, what we do in our homes. You know, I mean, we don't run a deficit like the federal government does. It's just not the way it works.
We'll get you back in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's right. That's just not the way it works, and appropriately so.
You're right.
So you have to balance the checkbook, so to speak, and there's, you know, you have to have some contingency dollars, but at the end of the day, there's just not a giant bunch of money that's just left on the table. So if you're going to do something new, then you have to have some difficult discussions about what are we not going to do, in order to offset that and pay for that. But with the passage of House Bill 4002 in 2024, as a reminder, that's the one that recriminalized small quantities of drugs, September 1st of 24. I would very much like to refocus on having a police officer in LeGrand PD that could focus proactively on drug investigations. Now, don't get me wrong. We've been making, you know, quite a few arrests related to possession of drugs since September 1st. But most of those, you know, for LeGrand PD are coming in terms of, it's more what I would say reactive. So we handle a call for service, or we make contact with a community member for one thing or the other. As an example, yesterday we arrested a person on probable cause related to a theft investigation. The person resisted. You know, there's other charges, but during the course of that investigation, he was found to have methamphetamine in his possession, so he caught a drug charge. So there's been quite a few of those. But anyway.
Well, and if that was the case, you'd be able to put somebody on the task force.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
which would
partner
be-
with the sheriff, and that's a model that goes way back.
Yeah.
LeGrand PD. I started in a volunteer capacity in 1993, full time in '94, and prior to me and my service with the city, we were doing proactive drug investigations, I remember those, and it was effective. And what I can tell you is that was before, it was like mid to late 90s before I ever saw or heard of methamphetamine. We just weren't seeing it in the early 90s. It just wasn't here. Cocaine and lots of marijuana, things like that. But we did drug task force investigations, the city and the county. The county came on later, but the city hasn't been able to staff a person in that capacity since 2015. And that was due to, resource shortages and staffing shortages. But then, with ballot measure 110, that it's like, it kind of made it okay for the moment because we didn't have a whole lot to enforce, quite frankly.
Right.
But the truth is, drugs are an issue in our community, and I would offer to you, because I talked to lots of chiefs of police around the state of Oregon, not just Oregon, but nationwide. And I'm really glad to see some of the renewed efforts to tighten up some of the things at our borders so that we can stem some of the heavy flow of methamphetamine and fentanyl into our communities, because ultimately that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So any little bit of help, and I've seen it, and I know that the enforcement, I can't sit here and tell you that will eradicate, addiction and the drug problems in our community, but every little thing that we can do, from enforcement to treatment, it all helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think human nature is kind of like water. It will just flow wherever there are not boundaries.
Right.
That is just, and that's just the nature. And that goes to, that goes to all of us.
That's right.
Yeah, whatever. If I don't have to get up and work out,
Yeah.
I'm not going to. So it's just, those are the kind that's how humans work.
Well, one of the things I can tell you factually is that just the idea of drug enforcement is as effective as actually making arrests related to drug possession or distribution. People that are living in that culture, there's a lot of paranoia, and if they are worried that they're going to get caught,
Right.
then that changes behaviors. So just knowing that it's out there,
Right.
and that at any given time, police officers might, be executing a warrant at their, domicile or stopping them on the street or whatever. That helps. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that bill that they passed was huge.
4002.
Yeah.
It was a step in the right direction for sure. I think I try to talk to a lot of people, and I really think that Oregonians have lost their appetite for the exercise that we went through between ballot measure 110 and 4002. It just was not the right thing.
No.
Well, and I think it was kind of coupled with the perfect storm of defund the police and the
COVID.
funding for police action going down,
Right.
and the morale that caused in the police force and
Yeah.
mass evacuation. All of that is just a
Well, that's a mouthful. And here's the truth is that, some people may not put two and two together in whatever walk of life they're in, don't have to think about that. But that entire exercise we went through as a nation, that still is having impact in our recruitment in
Absolutely.
public safety today. And it will for quite a while, because when you have a generation of young people who are trying to make decisions about what they're going to do with their future, what career fields they may want to go into, and they just see nothing but negativity about a particular field, likely that's not going to contribute them to want to pursue that. And we're still dealing with that. Our recruitment numbers, our application numbers, and it's not just here, it's nationwide. It's as challenging as it has ever been.
Wow.
So So Robert Strope, the city manager, has, said that he's going to retire in the fall, I think, and so the city is beginning a new search. But in the structure of our city, Robert is their city manager, is your direct boss.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been here a long time.
Yeah, 17 years if
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
I mean,
yeah.
how do you feel about that? I mean,
Nervous, I mean,
yeah.
Robert, I have found, well, let's just take it a step backwards. Albeit I've been in this job for quite a long time, I had other jobs, that I remember vividly before I worked for the city of LeGrand. And much like a lot of your viewers, it's like I've had a lot of different bosses, right? And by and large, I have found that I can work for just about anybody so long as, they foundationally, the values that I can work with are there, because, I mean, honesty and integrity and, things like that. It's like I can't just dismiss those things if
Right.
But I've been blessed, to work for some really, really good people, and I find that I don't think that I would probably be in the situation I'm in now professionally if it weren't for the mentoring and the coaching that I've received from some of my bosses, and Robert is one of those people. And I've learned a great deal from him, and I look, anytime that somebody, whether it's a position like the position I'm in or the city manager, we're easy targets, right? And the truth is, it's like, look, sometimes things that occur, as an example, at the police department, or actions that one of my officers or staff members takes, it's like I might not even be aware of that, but I'm responsible.
Right.
And I say that now, and I will in the future. And so in like Robert's situation, it's like if things aren't quite right, the streets, we have a lot of potholes. It's like, oh, city manager. But here's the thing is, take a look around, at a lot of other communities. And sometimes it's interesting because you see headlines, it's drama, and you see a lot of dysfunction in communities. And a lot of that has to do with local leadership. And what I would offer is that the city of LeGrand, in a lot of ways, has enjoyed a lot of stability for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Not just budgetarily, but in a lot of other operational ways. And the day-to-day work that happens, that a lot of times it's convenient for people not to be aware, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Those day-to-day decisions that are made and the priorities that are applied to the whiteboard, those basically over time generate into successes. And so, yes, Robert is certainly deserving of retirement. There's always an element of, excitement, like, hey, because what might we be able to do that we haven't thought to do, in previous years, but, you just don't know sometimes,
Right.
I want to make sure that we get somebody here that wants to be here for the right reasons and can contribute in a positive way, but fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Same thing at the fire department. I don't know if you guys know that, but Chief Cornford is retiring this spring for like the third time.
I was going to say, is this like 5 or 6?
Yeah, just two really incredible long-term assets to the city
Right.
of LeGrand, and that have contributed to successes in our community, and I'll miss them both. And but both are very deserving of retirement. But we're in the process of finding a new fire chief right now, and but it's important to get the right people in these positions. Leadership is as easy it is to talk about. There's lots of books about it, but to put it into practice, it's not that easy for everyone. And so we just need the right people.
Right. I mean, maybe Emmett just likes retirement parties.
He may, he's just such a good
wants
guy.
reason to get people together.
I always thought we should bring Chief Cornford and I on together.
Yeah,
We should. Let's do it.
We
Yeah.
should. I'd be all for it.
We'll just, so right here on the air, we'll just say that book your calendar, Chief. It's going to happen.
No, that'd be
At
awesome.
least once before he gets out of there, bring him on in an official
He is
capacity.
he's a great human being, and
He comes from great people.
Yes.
His parents were phenomenal.
right.
Well, and I think, the thing that you and Chief Cornford share is that you have roots here. And so
Right.
then that makes you care. I mean, it doesn't make you care, but I mean that is, it's foundational in the leadership that you do. You know,
Right. Yeah.
and I don't, I mean, I have an appreciation for people who display leadership. Doesn't matter if they're a hired gun and they come in or not, but it's a whole nother level when it's somebody who has the skills and the qualifications, but they're also from home.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I have a lot of thought about that very thing. I think that there's times for a community, whether it's a police chief or a city manager, for any leadership position, it could be within our schools. I think you always want to guard against like a good old boy system, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's not healthy for a community or whatever the organization might be. Because first and foremost, the individual has to have the capacity. They have to have the skill set, the experience. They have to be able to perform the essential functions of the position.
Right.
And it should never be just because somebody has been here the longest, they're going to be, appointed. No, that's not the case whatsoever. And nothing against that individual. But I think there certainly are, Brent, times that if we're fortunate enough, and my philosophy is that any chance we get, we should be trying to grow leadership within our organizations and within our community so that we have those, queued up succession plans.
Right.
As an example, what I can tell you at the police department, you guys know Lieutenant Jason Hayes. He's an incredible man. He's great capacity. At some future time, whenever it is time for me to step down, if Lieutenant Hayes is still the operational lieutenant at the police department, I would say he's your next guy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen because you just don't have the persons in those positions with the experience. But there's also times where you need to seek out some expertise externally. But I think that's part of effective and quality leadership, and what the city and the community deserves is the strength and the will to be able to honestly say what we need when we need it.
Right.
Haven't you and Jason's careers, though, pretty much ran side by side?
Right, yeah.
So,
and it goes further back than that, right?
But what's the chances that he stays longer? And, if it's one of my best friends and I've had a career, job with that person, I'm retiring with them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, that's how I would.
Yeah, so that's something maybe, Lieutenant Hayes and I came on, I don't know, it's been quite a while back together. It'd probably be good to bring him on again someday with us. But,
he's always welcome.
Some of
to
that
come
is, he would have to speak to that. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of, organized people, they're focused on today, but they also have short and long-term goals and thinking for tomorrow. We have positioned plans and intentions, but what we don't know is what we don't know, right? Sure. You knock on wood and you hope that it doesn't happen, but you never know what's going to happen with an individual's health, things like that. But I'm eligible to retire now and have been for a few years, but I still feel like I'm contributing in a positive way, and as long as that's the case, I'm not planning on retiring, in the next few years. And I know Lieutenant Hayes has a little bit longer than, I'm thinking maybe around 3 years, but I'm not making an announcement today. I haven't filled out my paperwork, but we'll see. Lieutenant Hayes started his career a little later than I did. I started pretty young, and like I said, I began full-time in 1994. And I think it was 98 or 99 when he started. He was in the Navy before he came back to LeGrand. And so in terms of picture for his retirement, he's a few years behind me. And here's the truth. We both, albeit there's some days and certain things that remind us of our age, right? But we both feel, we're very energetic, and we feel like we have things to contribute still. And I think some people through life, different chapters of life, you find that, I was contributing to the community, when I was, 25, 30 years old as a young police officer in a much different way than I am today.
Yeah.
But in large regard, those experiences that I built throughout my career in law enforcement are contributing to what I'm able to share with not the department, just the department and the staff there, but the community now. And so, I feel like I'm not done, but I've always said, even, when I was interviewing with the selection panel when I was appointed to this position, was that if at some point I believe that the community feels like that I am no longer the right person, for the position, then I'm not going to fight that, but I'm fighting every day to ensure that the community gets out of me what they feel like they need.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So here's a tough question.
Sure. Bring it.
Okay. So, you've been here a long time. Clearly, everything that you are is what we appreciate about the position that you're in, and so on and so forth, that you're invested in this. If there was one or a couple of things, though, that when you look at other cities or other police departments, which is part of good leadership, is you're going and visiting other places that are unlike us and looking for ideas that you can bring home to make things better. That's what every leader does. What would you say, and let's from a public standpoint, if you could help change the mind, and it's the older folks, it's my age and older,
Right.
those are they've been here a long time. If you could coach us into a different direction or encourage us to think about something differently, do you have anything that you would do that? Because you're kind of in a unique place.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot there. I'm not entirely sure I understand what the question is.
Yeah. If you could coach the people that have been here a long time,
Yeah.
to think about, hey, maybe consider this idea. This is against some of our traditions, or this is contrary to the way we've been thinking, but this is the world that's changing. I don't know, whatever it might be. Is there anything that you would say that you wish that we could think about in a different manner?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, Brent, nothing like, bright and shiny comes to mind. And here's the thing is, I'm all about be kind to each other.
Right.
That's and some of where I'm at is, it's a lifetime. I mean, I've been doing this longer than I've not been doing this in terms of age. And what I can tell you, I have seen the absolute worst in human beings. And it sickens me, quite frankly, how divided everything in our society is now. But when you really, me personally, and my experience, I guess, and I could share with others that maybe don't have the experience of communicating with people of all walks of life in different forums, different, circumstances, oftentimes when people are having their worst day, is that foundationally, we're all the same. And we really all want the same things in life. But somehow or the other, we've been drifting towards or directed towards being in conflict with one another all the time. And, I really don't think there's very many issues or problems that we don't have the capacity to solve. But sometimes they seem like they're just unachievable because, people and their mindset and attitudes and egos get in the way. And, so maybe I stuck on that whole sofa thing that we talked about early on, but sorry to get so deep, but that's the truth is I think that it's just, can check in on your neighbors, care about, we really, and it's going to sound horribly old fashioned, but there's sometimes I think that as a culture, we've advanced in a lot of ways, but I think that we've regressed in a lot of ways as well. And, we need to get back to caring for each other, and we need to get back to, family values and contributing to your community in some positive way. Get outside of yourself.
Yeah.
What can you do to, and I tell you what, just if you're walking down the street just be kind to somebody,
Yeah,
and you have no idea how meaningful that might be to that somebody.
Yeah.
And if you're in a position where you can actually help somebody out in some way, and it doesn't always have to be financial by any measure, but those little things, that pay it forward mentality, it's a big deal. And it kind of segues into something that you mentioned to me earlier on. It's like you see somebody standing at the crosswalk waiting to cross the street. Think about, hey, maybe pay attention and stop and yield for that person. These are things. It's like that when we're driving, or even if we're walking as a pedestrian, put the phone away for a minute and pay attention to what's going on around you, and maybe even wave at somebody. But what you're going to do is you're going to see that, oh, there's somebody at the crosswalk, and I can take the 25 seconds, out of my day to stop and let them walk. And what you might find is that they're actually going to turn and wave at you anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, that's part of that community charm that I think that we have the benefit of still holding on to here in La Grande. And because you're not going to get that, in a lot of the big cities you go to, right?
No.
You're taking your life in your hands. It's like old Frogger, the old, old school Frogger trying to cross. I mean, I'm in Boise a lot, and you see the width of some of those intersections. It's like, I don't even know if I'd want to, I'd have to stop and rest before I get to the other side, let alone not get run over. But so I don't know if that hit the mark in your question, Brent, but I think that's it, just do right by other people.
It's not easy either, because in this world that we live in today, people are so skeptical.
Yeah.
When people are being nice, they always think that they're doing it for some other reason. For their own agenda. Like you see it a lot on social media. Like people will, go feed homeless. Like I'm not a big fan of filming that anyways. I think you should just do it if you're going to do it.
Right.
But there's always the skepticism for people that are nice, because you don't ever know what their agenda is or what they're trying to get out of it.
That's correct. But what can happen, because I bristle at you said social media. It's like I participate on some of those, because it's like, how can we not in some? I mean, I know some people that don't, and good for them, right? But
they live in a little box.
That's the way that. But the thing is, it's like, with a grain of salt, though, and all things, in the, I guess, the right measure. But there's so much there that it's like, I mean, the industry that you guys are in, I feel like sometimes that we're a society devoid of real journalism, and fact finding, because there's so much clickbait. You'll be scrolling on your phone or whatever device it is, and you see things, and if you actually take the time to read whatever it's like, what you see is, it's like, one, there's no sources, there's no factual basis, so you don't know if it's true or not. And I think our societally, we have been left to a place where if you're able to still discern, that chances are there's no way that you can tell whether or not that is actual fact or not. But I can tell you what you can control and be certain of is if you face to face, which is not something a lot of people like to do, but if your neighbor needs help, you can tell if that's genuine or not. And so that's where in a community the size of ours, Brent, it's like, look, we have the ability to individually make significant differences.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I know that. Look. So anyway, I expect big changes by Friday.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a lot there, and I like all of it. One of the things that we like about what we do is people like you get a say in your own voice. You're talking in a first person manner about your experiences.
Right.
We're not clipping out what you're saying and turning it into a soundbite and using it against you, or taking it out of context. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do at EOA Live that would get more clicks.
Right.
But
that's already being done.
Yeah, and longer form conversations. It's it's so funny the world, and we talk about this all the time. It's like it's got to be under 30 seconds, or some of these longer podcasts are 2 or 3 hours long, you know, and And so there's and in between there's just this Wild West world that's going on.
And we've kind of created a society where it's like, shoot, I'm a human being, so I'm the same way, where it's like, you see something, I mentioned clickbait. I think we all know what I'm talking about when I say that. And it's like, it's drama and it's interesting. It's like, oh gosh, what? But here's the truth. The real good stuff is happening in the background. I mean, it's not necessarily newsworthy, right? And I know that we locally, I remember times that our local media sources have done things like that, where it highlights the kind of behind the scenes stuff, right? But it's so critical, because that's really what makes things, those are the cogs, right? And it's like, we have a lot of people, organizations. I mean, I saw,
sorry,
it's fine. I saw recently, Jerry Hopkins was recognized for what he has been doing with Loveland Safe Ride for all these years. And
Loveland Safe Ride was recognized.
That's right.
Too.
Yeah. And so it's like, those are the kinds of things that it's like, Jerry doesn't have to do that.
Right.
He hasn't had to have done that for all these years, but it's like, think about the impact that one individual, and I know you guys know Jerry, and a lot of people in the community do, and Jerry's not a perfect human being, just like any of us. But you think about what he has done with the opportunity that he has had there, and how that has impacted our community. Those are meaningful things.
Right.
And we have a lot of people that are doing things like that. So anyway, we have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
I agree.
So on the previous question, so here's what I've experienced a little bit, and I guess this is what, and I'm sure that you feel this way too. But as you get older, you have this train that's rushing toward you that you have no control over, and of age, and you're just getting older. But it's really easy to take on an attitude of entitlement, and it's like, or impatience sometimes. It's like, yeah, I paid my dues, rather than filtering my words, I'm just going to, I used to filter my words when I'm younger. I'm talking about this is the mentality I feel pressing into me, and then I see in people, and so then it's like, I don't have to be kind anymore. I've already gone through that,
Right.
and so there's an impatience, there's an entitlement that comes along with that, and that's not. And so sometimes you see people that are in their 80s, and they're grouchy. They're, it's just their personality changes over a period of time. And I feel that. I feel the nature of
Feeling
that.
a little grumpy, Brent?
Yeah, and then so then it's like, oh man, I got to change the look on my face.
Yeah.
And so,
I think it's, look, something we all have in common is the fact that we're human beings.
Right, yeah.
And, the challenges of life are real, and, they're different at different times for all of us, but, there's lots of things that we can get fixated on that will bring us into that rut of negativity, or that rut of, however you want to describe it. But I think if you just pause for a moment and think about that, it's like, gosh, if I'm, in my mid 50s, I look around and I know a lot of people that I had relationships with or knew when I was younger, and they're no longer here.
Yeah.
And so right there, I have that to be thankful for, right? And, there's just, I think it's just a mindset. It's like, what do you want to focus on?
right.
And, how do you want to be as a human being? I think that as we age, we have the luxury of, if you choose to apply it this way, wisdom, because it's like, I've tried a bunch of that. I've tried being grumpy. I've tried being negative.
Right.
And guess what? It really didn't pan out.
Right.
And what I can tell you is a recipe for success. I can't speak for everybody else, but for myself is that if you treat other people the way that you'd want to be treated, if you kind of go through the day really in the lane of positivity. What can I do for people around me instead of thinking about what can I do for me? What I can tell you is that it's almost like an unfair trick, because the end result, if you take that path, is that it's going to benefit you, and it pays itself in dividends. And so in some ways, it's kind of like you are being selfish, or you are being self-centered or self-serving, but you're not, because along the way, what you have done is you have benefited others. You have shared knowledge. You have, supported or uplifted somebody else around you. And guess what? They're going to want to do that when you're having a tough day, right? And so, I mean, this is not new stuff. Gary didn't. This is, but I can tell you is that I have found that in my life. And we all have difficult days,
right?
But I'm guessing that most of us can also think about people that, every time you see them, somehow or the other, something that they say to you, or just the way that they carry themselves, leaves you with a little bit of a positive feeling,
right?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people you want to be around, right? Conversely, if you spend a lot of time around people that are just anything that you have to say, any topic that you can possibly come up with, they have something negative to say about it.
Right.
Do you really want to be around those people? No. And
No.
so I'm just saying that it's like, the 80-year-old that you mentioned, it's like they probably deserve and have lots of reasons to be grouchy, have lots of reasons, but then again, that's not going to make it better.
Right.
You
well,
know?
and it's not fair. It's not just 80. I mean,
No.
it's 60. I got a birthday coming up. I'll be 64. I mean, it's people. It's who we are.
Yep.
And I think that part of what's happened is, we've kind of over the last several years we feel like our way of life or our traditions have been pressed in on.
Yeah.
And
I think something that's unfair, quite
yeah.
frankly, guys, that I have I'm not going to say good fortune, but that, when I talk to you about the way that I view things, part of that is because if I come across somebody that they're just in the doldrums, or they're just grouchy, or whatever, it's like, hey, what I could offer them is come with me. I'll show you some people that really have problems.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, seriously.
Right. No.
I mean,
yeah.
because I have seen circumstances that, homes that children, it's like, that's not their choice, right?
Right.
They've got a tough go of it.
Right.
People that have been victimized, and so I've seen how bad it can be. And a lot of times what I see is people, it's like, look, it's really not that bad.
Right.
It's what you make. Life is what you make of it.
Right.
And what I can tell you, my personal belief is that the secret is do good things for other people. And if you go about life just trying to do good for me, I don't think that you're ever going to feel like you're crossing the finish line.
Yeah.
But I think that if you do good things for others, do good things for your community, it leaves something in us that it's a sense that I've done something that mattered, and a sense of accomplishment. And to me, those are durable things. Those are legacy things, not just within your community, but your family, people around you. Because otherwise, people aren't going to miss you. If you're just grumpy and have nothing good to say, I mean, it's
they're
true.
gonna be like,
They're not going to miss you.
That dude finally died.
That's right.
God.
That's right. And it's not maybe not speaking so drastically about death, but it's like it may just be a conversation. If that's you, when you leave that conversation, you're not going to be missed.
Right.
And likely they're not going to remember anything that you had to say. Or it might be your job place, or it might be some group setting that you're in, a meeting. But if you have some positive things, people will remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry says thank you, by the way.
Who's that?
Jerry.
Well,
He says thank you.
yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, we've talked, Jerry has done some amazing, people have taken opportunities and done amazing. Jerry is a great example of
Right.
that. And and you're here talking to us today. I mean, I feel really fortunate to have friends like you guys to be able to talk to and so on and so forth. But the point I think that you are getting at and that I'm trying to get at is that you don't have to be in a position to be kind to each other. I mean, it doesn't. It's so funny because when sometimes I will see a pedestrian and I'll stop and let them cross, and they look at me with appreciation.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like,
Yeah.
thank you. Because I mean, there's an uncontrolled intersection out in Island City, right there before you get to the Island City Market. No lights, no nothing, and that's a wide place, know, and so a lot of times I'll see somebody and I'll stop, and then the other people like, oh well, he stopped, and then they'll see the pedestrian and so on and so forth, So
yeah, it's kind of a little moment. You know,
Yeah.
if you do it right, it's like everybody has it slows things down. You can
Right.
make some eye contact.
Right.
You can
Give a
wave.
little wave. But let me share with you guys. So there's times that, contrary to what some might think, is that I'm a pedestrian. I'm not in uniform. I'm off maybe with my wife, and there's a few places on Adams Avenue. Maybe we're crossing to go to a restaurant or something, and I'll do that. And I'm just trying to be nice. And here I am walking, looking at somebody waving, and then I catch my foot in one of those 7-foot deep ruts and almost trip and fall. It's like, oh, okay, now everybody got to see that.
We're right back
But
to
I don't know. I think most of us have had that experience where it's like when you're driving, you don't notice how you've got to pick your feet up when you're crossing Adams Avenue.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can't scrape.
No, you better pick your feet up.
Especially down by like the landing.
Yeah.
Right in that area. Oh man, those
and
ruts
when
are
you're in
just-
your car, you don't really necessarily notice how significant those
it's
ruts
pretty-
are.
It's wild.
But it's come to my attention though, and look, it's not new, right? Pedestrian safety, pedestrian crossings. This is a long, and hey, it's been an issue for a very long time. We don't have the ability to do as much proactive traffic enforcement as I would like to, but what we do seems like with pretty decent effect is what we call at the police department focus enforcement efforts, because we don't have the call volume that our police officers are dealing with today versus a couple of decades ago. It's pretty significantly heavier, okay?
Yeah.
So we just don't have the ability, the officers just don't have that much discretionary time where they can just go out and just do traffic enforcement. So what we do is we will actually create these initiatives where we want the officers to go out. We'll create what we want them to focus on for periods of time. Mm-hmm. And what we found is so we may have, it'll come to our attention. And the truth is when maybe a community member brings it to my attention or, the attention of somebody at the office, it's not like, oh, we had no idea, right? Because
Most of the time
we're
they
aware.
know.
Because it's not a new thing. Speeding often, is so, but we'll do a focused enforcement effort, in a particular area, a week or two, oftentimes is what we'll do. But we'll have the officers out there visible, and it makes a difference. We know, we know how to effectively police in America, and we know how to effectively police in LeGrand.
Presence.
It's just that it's like everything else in life, in our community, in our world, is that there's never all the resources that you wish or would like to have. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, it's just not feasible. But we would have officers that could focus on, traffic all day long, every day. It's just not feasible, right? But what we're doing is we're moving things around in an effort in order to try to have the best effect. Mm-hmm. But the pedestrian safety stuff, it's come to my attention again, and I'm aware of it, and I think it's time. Focused effort. So heads up, stop for the pedestrians because you may just get stopped. You might get a chance to meet our municipal court judge.
On the west side, when I lived over there, Polk County, they used to do stings a lot.
Like, we did that here
in the Dallas, like in downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
You better be stopping because that just might be a cop walking across.
I got a
the
couple
street.
minutes, so let me tell you, we did that here.
Yeah.
Years and years and years ago, ODOT had some grant funding specifically for, so that's what I'm telling you. This has been, you know, our public safety, roadway safety stuff. Look, speeding has been a thing since they parked the horses and buggies.
Yeah.
One of these days I need to share with you guys some very, very old LeGrand City ordinances that I have that talks about cars and horse and buggies interacting
interesting.
on LeGrand City streets.
Yeah.
It's humorous. I mean, it was serious stuff at the time, humorous to look at today. But we secured some of this grant funding, like a lot of other communities, and it was pedestrian crosswalk safety sting operations.
Yeah.
And so we had plainclothes officers, unmarked police cars, the whole thing. And we wrote a whole bunch of tickets.
A whole bunch.
And I can tell you what, the city council chambers were full. People didn't like
Just
it.
pissed, huh?
Because that's the way that enforcement, because we could get a room full of community members and they'd be like, Chief, stop that speeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're on it. And we go out and we write a box full of citations. And you know what? There's going to be a bunch of people that are not happy.
Yeah, you're just writing those tickets to meet your quota.
It's just the way it goes. I'm telling you. You guys know this, but it's like people are like, yeah, I want those speeders stopped, right until it's them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You
a
know,
lose-lose.
but that's the way it goes. Yeah.
So one quick question before we quit.
Yeah.
So the parking officer downtown
Yep.
doesn't have the little vehicle anymore, right? I mean, or do
Yeah.
they have has a little SUV? Right.
Yeah. So Danny Knight, she's our parking code enforcement officer.
okay.
If you haven't had a chance to, hey, same thing. She's a wonderful human being, and we're so lucky to have her.
Right.
But I know some people may not think so when they get the parking ticket.
No.
But here's the thing: is we still have the little vehicle, but
Souped up golf cart, basically.
yep, that's it. Yeah, that's exactly it. The purpose of that is it's got doors. It's like the old mail vehicles, right?
Right, right.
So it's narrow, so the person can mark
Yeah.
tires off both sides.
No, that makes sense.
And but she likes to walk, and so the other vehicle, we have a vehicle that we use for other utility things, but it's a small pickup,
Right.
basically. So she'll just come downtown and do her time zones. You know, she just likes to be on foot.
Right.
And we encourage that because
Yeah.
it does a couple of things. One, she can effectively do the job. And two, there's a lot more community interaction.
Yeah,
And,
there's a presence.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are times, whether it's because of a time constraint or, you know, maybe, you know, we have a person doing the job that, you know, they're just not able to walk. Because if you want to, every once in a while, like for wellness stuff in the city, we do like step challenges between departments. And I mean, she's a ringer because she puts in a lot of steps every day. Yeah, she's doing a great job though.
Well, Gary, thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
always
Yeah.
my pleasure. Let's see if we can get Chief Cornford and I in.
Let's
No,
do it.
let's do
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
next
we'll
time.
work on that.
Yeah,
So, no, always a pleasure. Thank you for what you do. Yeah,
my pleasure. Thanks.
yeah, appreciate it. Hey, you want to get us out of here?
Let's do it. On this day, March 11th, 1892, the first public basketball game is ever played in Springfield, Massachusetts. 1953, on this day, the first woman Army doctor is commissioned, F.M. Adams. 1963, on this day, U.S. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara orders the adoption by the U.S. military of the M16 assault rifle, originally designed as the AR-15 by Eugene Stoner. 1968, on this day, Otis Redding is the first person in U.S. history to posthumously receive a gold record for his single Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. 2020, on this day, COVID-19 is officially declared a pandemic by the head of the World Health Organization after 121,000 cases worldwide and 4,373 deaths. 2021, we just talked about this yesterday. We were talking about digital artwork yesterday. Digital artwork every day is the first 5,000 days, which is a digital collage by Beeple with a non-fungible token, sells for a record $69.3 million in an online auction. for a digital piece of art. That is crazy. The number one movie in America on this day, 2005, Robots. That was Robin Williams. Yeah, he was in that. He voiced the character in that movie. And then the quote of the day comes from Caroline Miss. The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind. One more time. The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind.
Good stuff.
That's it.
Yep.
Hey, thank you, Gary.
Yeah, you're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Have a good day, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, we'll see you guys Thursday. We're going to have the FBLA girls from Embler High School will be with us, and will be giving their speeches. Be sure and don't miss that. It's going to be fun.